What happens to cognitive function as we age? Is your brain aging faster than it should be? Here's what happens to our brain as we age. Memory loss isn't part of aging. Here's what actually happens inside of your brain. What if you could slow down cognitive decline and have optimal brain performance throughout your entire life? Scientists say it's possible. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can protect your brain, sharpen your focus, and enhance your cognitive abilities. The human brain is one of the most amazing organs in the entire body. I would bet that if I asked you, what organ do you want to keep? We've got to take everything, but you can keep one thing. I think we'd all probably say, okay, just keep my brain. But one of the interesting things is our brain just isn't local. Like, we think of our brain as the processing center for our mind, but actually in this video, we're going to talk about all these different aspects of the brain and how your entire body is this intelligent being. And your heart has intelligence, your kidneys have intelligence, your digestive system has intelligence, and we're going to go deep into how you can access that intelligence at any time, at any situation, and you're going to notice a much better improvement in your body's ability to think. So what happens to our brain over time is we start creating all these associations. So memories are formed when you have associative aspects in the body. So if you think about you're learning a new language, for example, maybe you're learning Korean, and you recognize that there are some similarities to the way that Koreans communicate in their language to maybe English. But you also recognize there's a lot of variations in that particular language. And so one of the things you can do is you can create associations. Now, these associations can help you draw that memory and encode it into your hippocampus. And then when you sleep at night, that encoding gets pulled up to your neocortex. And as you're sleeping, you start learning Korean. And actually, there's a lot of research that shows that just by listening at a low volume, listening to Korean, if you're learning Korean, listening to that as you sleep, you'll actually get better encoding in your hippocampus and better transmission into your neocortex, where you can actually use that language. So what happens to our brain when we're older? Does that mean we can't learn new things? You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, I'm here to tell you that no matter what age you are, your brain actually gets better as we age. And it gets better as we age if you take care of it. And that's the purpose of this video, because my life is about transforming people's health. And one of the most devastating things that I saw when I was a teenager is my grandmother experience cognitive decline. Now, the benefit of it is I remember when I was getting a lot of birthday cards from my grandmother, and I'm like, Mom, I keep getting these $20 bills and a I love you card from Grandma. Is she just trying to hook me up? I mean, am I her favorite grandkid or what? My mom's like, no, you're not, of course, but there's other kids that are better. No, she didn't say that. But what she did say is, Grandma was just diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And this was a vibrant woman. She was very entrepreneurial. And this is in the 50s. She had lots of businesses. She raised 5 kids. And she always had endless energy. But my last memories of my grandmother were a look of paranoia in her eyes. She didn't recognize who I was, and she couldn't even find the bathroom. She couldn't even take the time. She didn't have the skills to feed herself. And that was devastating. But that doesn't have to happen. But as our brains age, if we're not taking care of them, then what you'll see is this cognitive decline sets in. And that's where these beta amyloid plaques can start to set in. And these beta amyloid plaques, what we realize now is it's a protective function for our brain. And a lot of infections can get in the brain. But I'm going to show you exactly how you can prevent that, because the biggest disease that you and I have to face in our 80s, it's not cancer, it's not heart disease, it's not diabetes, it's Alzheimer's. And Alzheimer's is not just costly on you, it's costly on everybody around you. And this is where today is where my favorite Chinese saying is, when is the best time to plant a tree? It was 20 years ago. Second best time is today. So I want you to take out a pen and a notepad and take notes on this, because this is where you're going to plant a tree. Science shows that just by writing things down and then looking at that goal and looking at these action items every day, you're far more likely to achieve the outcome that you want to achieve. And if you're looking into your future and you say, okay, when I'm 80, I want my brain to be more expressive, more creative, more focused, more happy. I want to have a brain that is fully optimized by 80, and then by 90 and 100, well, you're going to have to start today. And so that's where taking notes and really diving deep will save your life. All right, so one of the first things you want to do when it comes to brain health is look for any kind of infections in your mouth. And I know you're probably like, what does that have to do with it, Regan? Well, the number one cause of heart disease is infections. And actually in patients who have any kind of cardiovascular disease, what you'll see in the brain is you're going to have cognitive decline, because the brain is one of the most densely supplied areas in the body of blood supply. And so if you've ever seen, kind of the image of the brain and just the vessels in the brain, it's just massive. So one of the things you can do is get rid of infections in your mouth, because what those infections do is they start colonizing bacteria in your gut, and then you can start having these different episodes of either parasites or fungus or mycotoxins that start to develop in other parts of your body, and those can transmigrate into the brain. Infections love fatty tissue, and your brain is about 57% fat. And these infections, they can get in there, and especially if you've had any kind of heavy metal exposure, lead, cadmium. So if you've eaten chocolate, you're going to have lead. If you eat vanilla, you're going to have cadmium. And it's not just like, oh, I don't work with heavy metals, but we get them all the time. And so this is where detoxification is one of the most important things that you can do to protect your brain. Because what those beta amyloid plaques are doing in Alzheimer's is they're there to protect you against infections. And the infections from the mouth, like if you've had a root canal, or maybe you've had a cavity, or things that weren't taken care of in your gums, those infections can start to embed themselves in multiple places in the body. And so when you have an infection, those old infections, they feed on the heavy metals and they create this biofilm that's really hard to penetrate. And then without having proper immune circulation in the lymphatic system, then what you'll see is these microglial cells that protect your neurons, they start getting triggered and they start buzzing in a way that's problematic, because you lose the neurotransmitter secretions, and that's when memory starts to decline. So the best way to prevent these diseases like cognitive decline or even a loss of focus is, first of all, think of the epic trigger and write this down. So the first thing is the emotional triggers. What are the stressful circumstances that are triggering a fight or flight response? Do you have people you need to forgive? Are you envious? Are you jealous? Are you insecure? Those things, just let go of them. They're of no use for you except in that moment where you need to test something. But other than that, they can really be a trigger, and they can turn off your brain function and keep it from detoxifying. The second thing are physical traumas. If you've had a traumatic brain injury, what the science shows, and Dr. Daniel Amen did a lot of research on these SPECT scans, and what he found is that the brain starts to change, the anatomy of the brain starts to change 20, sometimes 30 years before symptoms ever show up. So you want to look at that. And then the physical traumas, they can be just simple head knock. It can be if you had a concussion. And look at the homocysteine levels in your labs, because that can show chronic inflammation. The third thing are infections. And we talked a lot about these infections, but this is where you want to look at your environment. Are there mold? Is there mycotoxins? Do you notice that you have a lot of reactions to food? Are there different triggers that are causing this histamine response? And then you want to eradicate those infections. Things like Lyme disease, Epstein-Barr virus. If you have any kind of autoimmunity, there's a good chance you've got infections. And then the final one are chemicals. And so chemicals are everywhere. And we talked about some of the heavy metals, but one of the chemicals I had to get rid of in my life is glyphosate. And glyphosate, growing up on the farm, we'd remove sprinkler pipes. I'd get sprayed with Roundup all the time. I'd go back and spray the riverbanks with Roundup, and then I'd dip fence posts in formaldehyde. And I'd had all these chemicals all over me that led me to having massive autoimmunity, which led to brain fog. But by removing those chemicals and removing those epic triggers, my brain was able to regenerate using peptides, stem cells, using neurofeedback, meditation. All of those things can help prevent these diseases that none of us want to have. So today is your day to plant that tree. Think of these epic triggers. Every day, your goal is to remove any of those epic triggers that could threaten your future. And then watch my next video, because I'm going to go deep into what you can do proactively to increase cognitive function and increase your health.